Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second Thunder Laser USA sales webinar. My name is Grant. I'm the sales manager here at Thunder Laser USA. We also have Chris Lacasio, who is, well, I don't even know what to call him. He is a sales rep and a support tech, and he's going to do some tutorials and a bunch of things. Chris is a bunch of things. But yeah, so we're here today for the sales webinar. It's the second one we've ever done. We're still figuring out what this is going to look like exactly. Last time at the beginning of it, we had about 15 or so minutes planned out that we wanted to talk about certain topics, different machines, what they do, that sort of thing. And then we left the latter half of it for the chat feature that I'm sure you guys are looking at. And so we would do a live Q&A. But I think this time we're going to do mainly Q&A from the chat, and Chris is also going to show us around on his machines and show it live in action. So that's our plan. So with that being said, if you have some questions, the chat is really good for just talking amongst each other. There's a Q&A section that's specifically for asking us questions. So that's where I'm going to look. I'm going to look in the Q&A section, and we're going to answer everything that we possibly can right in there. So if you have a question, go type it in there for us. Chris, do you want to talk about what you've been working on currently and what
Yeah,
machine you
absolutely.
got over there in the corner?
Absolutely. Well, right behind me, you guys could probably see my 63 130 watt Nova. And we also have we basically have all the machines here. I do have the Odin. That's the 50 watt RF tube. And then we have the Aurora UV laser that will be coming out. Actually, you can even order it now, correct, Grant?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, so we are now selling the UV laser, which is really cool. Having fun with that. I'm getting all the parameters set and a library built for all of our users coming on board with that. So they'll have settings for a bunch of different materials to start out with, so you don't have to play a guessing game. And then we also have the fiber. I have the 20 watt fiber over there in the corner as well.
Which leads me to a good question. So I'm sure we're going to get this a lot. What's the difference between a UV and a fiber? Now, before you answer that, our UV and our fiber laser have the same encasing, the Aurora. The Aurora will just have different wattage options and different source types, like the UV and the fiber. So, Chris, what's the difference between a UV and a fiber, and why would you use one over the other?
Well, the UV is just that, ultraviolet versus our fiber laser. The fiber laser is going to be more for doing metal engraving, deep metal engraving, depending on the wattages. And the UV is really, I'm finding out quickly that this is a new technology, newer for us at least. It's really good on a lot of materials, things that the fiber won't touch, like wood. The UV does an excellent job on. Things that a CO2 will do, the UV also does a great job on. So it's really an all-around universal laser, kind of like me, kind of a Swiss Army knife of sources. It's pretty neat.
Yep, absolutely. I see some questions starting to come in. Before we start answering these, so the purpose of the sales webinar is really for those who are brand new and they don't have a machine yet and they want to ask like, what machine should I use for this? Or does the Nova series cut this or engrave this? If you have support questions, those are best fielded at emailing support@thunderlaserusa.com. Or, no, not really or. That's the best way to get support. There's also a support webinar, so you could hop on that and chat with our techs live there too. But if you have a
Yeah,
support question, you have an issue, email support@thunderlaserusa.com.
and
All
Grant,
right.
I cannot see the questions coming in. So if you just want to, since it's on the phone,
Hmm.
so you ask those questions and I'll try to help out.
Okay. I'll try to figure out which ones. I'm going to start with the sales questions, and if we get through those, then I'll answer some of the support ones the best we can. Does this laser cut white Dollar Tree foam? It physically could cut it. Now, I don't know if it's safe or not. I would do some research into that, but I see people cut foam all the time. And by this machine, you said this laser cut. The Nova series, the Odin series will both cut the foam.
Right. Yeah, we're going to want to know what's in that material as long as it doesn't emit any type of harmful smoke and fumes. No chlorine or PVC based materials.
Yep. Yeah, so there's several materials that the machines can cut, but you shouldn't because they can kill you. So if it can kill you, I wouldn't do it. Let's see. I'm looking to buy the Nova 35 100 watt laser. I'll mainly be using this for engraving woods. I'm interested to know more about that series of machine. So to me, the Nova series that we have is the most universal Swiss Army knife, like Chris said. It can do the largest variety of different things, I would say. So you can cut, you can engrave a plethora of different materials: wood, cardboard, fabric, acrylic, some other plastics, cups. Now the limitation of a Nova series is cutting or engraving metal. Now with the engraving side of metal, you can remove a coating. So like a Yeti tumbler, wish I had one sitting here. With a Yeti tumbler, you can remove the coating off of it, but you can't actually indent into the metal with the Nova series. So that's the main limitation. Like we were just talking about a second ago, there's some materials that you can do that you shouldn't, but yeah, that's very cool. Was that on the 63?
Yes.
Very cool.
With a high resolution lens.
Awesome. All right, so let's see what's next. What's the difference between a CO2 and a UV?
Well, the UV is going to be a much smaller work area. Unless we don't carry it, but there are Galvo style CO2 lasers. But you're limited in the size of the work area. And the UV is really not designed to cut. Will it cut some materials? Yes. But the CO2 lasers that we sell, 60 watts all the way up to 130, are going to be engraving, rapid engraving, all the way up to 1,000 millimeters per second, and cutting. If you're going up to 130, I can easily cut 1 inch acrylic with it. So it really depends on what you're going to be doing.
Yep. Let's see. So is there a way to prevent light material from lifting up and getting in the way of the laser when the cuts are too small to use magnets? Yes, there's different ways you can do it. Some you can't really avoid it because if the material is super thin and it gets heated up a lot of the times it'll warp. So you might have to just stop. I'll let Chris say, but I would say you might have to stop your job to let it reset.
Yeah, I mean, if it's lifting up either via the air, the air assist, we can turn down the air assist. There are many people that retrofit some type of a vacuum table system by upgrading their exhaust fans and making sure it seals a little bit better inside the machine. Obviously, our exhaust system is designed for a purpose. It's designed to pull all of the smoke and soot out and get it away from the environment that you're working in. But using that as a dual purpose and trying to create a vacuum table for papers and stuff like that, I've seen that done. We would have to help you research ways to do that. But I use material stays, some clips that go through the honeycomb, and they just hold on to the edges. And I use magnets on the corners and stuff like that. That's really the best way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of questions coming in about material libraries, so I think I can answer all of those pretty quickly. Let me show my screen if I can figure it out. Okay, cool. So on our main page, if you click on knowledge base and then just type in the wattage that you have, for instance,
Uh,
100 watt.
there,
This is
there's
what
there's
I
a,
do.
there's actually a landing page now that I built for that, and it does
Right
have
here.
links. It does have links to um, some sources that'll tell you if the material's safe or not as well. But it has all of our
Oh,
material libraries in one place.
so like for each wattage, it's in there.
Yep, yep,
What's the
and
best
even
way to find it?
material library, and it'll come up as safe materials.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So yeah, just look up material libraries. You scroll down, and they're all right here. So you just click on that, and you can download it into Lightburn, or usually there's a PDF. You can print it off, whatever works easier for you. Some people like having it in their hand. So, yep, it's right there. All right. Let's see. Can the Nova Series engrave golf balls safely? I've seen people do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I'm not sure what the outer coating is, but you're doing such a light coating on it, it's not going to release a lot of gases. You'll probably just be turning the surface of it a brownish. So I don't see why not. It's when we start cutting these unsafe materials where we start to have questions and want to know what's inside.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I've tried to engrave a golf ball before, just one, and I didn't get my settings just right. That it's not to say that if I kept trying with more golf balls that I would get a different result, but I'm sure it could vary depending on what brand the golf ball is, also the specific model. You could get a different result for each one because they're made of different materials, I'm sure.
Even colors will change how that works. But I think a fiber laser or the UV laser are going to be the best bet if that's going to be something that you're going to be doing consistently. Um, and that will change the color of the plastics that are on the outside.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. What is the link for purchasing accessories and replacement parts? That's a good question. So right now we're actually working on our ecom site. So within the next few weeks or a month or so, you'll be able to purchase pretty much everything from our website. Um, we're just working on some bugs there. So the way that it's going to work is on our main page, you'll be able to sort the accessories by the specific series machine you're looking for. So there will be a Nova series accessories section, Odin series, Aurora series. Now for parts, which is separate from accessories, there will be like a separate page, but we'll give you access to that. You'll have a link. I'm sure it'll be up at the top of the website or what have you, but give us a few weeks on that and it should be live. Okay. Can a thunder laser cut through half-inch birch plywood? Yes. Really, any wattage can cut through half-inch. There's certain wattages that are going to do it better or more quickly, less burning than others. My goal when I'm talking to somebody on the phone is I tell them you want to be able to cut through X material with one pass. So like a 60 watt, although it may be able to cut a half-inch, let's say maybe you have to do two passes. And if you have to do two passes, the more times you're going around, the more burning you're going to get. And a lot of times that's going to make it not look so good to burn it.
Yeah, and that's one of the good reasons for having one of the sales calls. All of the sales team, including Grant and I, who do sales calls, we kind of pre-qualify you to make sure that you're not buying excess of a machine and you're not buying something that's not going to fit your needs. We're trying to keep budget and your ideas and what you're trying to do with it in mind.
Yep. And so to answer your question, yes, it can cut through, our Nova series can cut through half-inch birch. My recommendation is to generally start off with a 100 watt, or you can look at a 130. So that's usually where I push people. That would put you at the Nova 35, 100, or you can look at the 51 or the 63. Does anyone use a UV galvo laser for engraving rubber stamps? That I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. I just did it the other day, running through some of the tests. I'm testing absolutely every material I can get my hands on and building a library for it. I want to say my initial findings with the rubber stamp is if you're making stamps out of it and you need the depth, the CO2 is still the way to go on that. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be faster or not. It does mark it. It will change the color of it. It took a little longer than I would have liked to get the depth out of that heavy duty stamp material.
Yep. Okay. What is the difference between the Aurora and the Aurora Pro? So there's machine differences, of course, but the number one thing that I bring up on the phone is that with our Aurora basic models, is what we refer to them as, you can use Lightburn. It doesn't come with Lightburn, it comes with EasyCAD 2, but it is Lightburn compatible. So if you wanted to use Lightburn, you could purchase it and use it for the Aurora basic models. Now the Pro models, they use EasyCAD 3 and have a 3D board, and that Lightburn does not have the version of their software that is compatible with that as of right now. I'll let Chris speak to the technical differences between the two.
Really, the technical difference is there's a little bit of difference on the scan head. The scan head's a little bit faster, and the board is the EasyCAD 3 board, which is not compatible yet with Lightburn, as you said. There's some other features that aren't taken advantage of yet. It's kind of newer technology. So we're still working on that and developing that on the Thunder global side. But yeah, there's some differences, like frequency range on the Pro versions are a little bit different as well. But usually going through all of that and what your end goal is, we can definitely hook you up with the right version.
Yep. And on the Aurora, while we're talking about it, I've been debating if I'm going to announce this or not, but here soon, we're going to start selling a 60-watt MOPA and a 100-watt MOPA. We've been getting a lot of questions about when is Thunder Laser going to have more powerful fiber lasers. Very soon. We've already got that kind of in the works. We're just waiting on the sources to come in, and then we're going to build the machines, and they'll be available for sale. I wish you could see these questions so we can run through it together.
I'm sorry. I guess that's a limitation of having it mobile.
Okay. Is your fiber laser MOPA or regular fiber? We have both options. So currently we've got a 20-watt regular fiber, 50-watt regular fiber, and then we have a 20-watt MOPA. But as I was just saying, that's going to change a little bit. We're going to have a 20-watt regular, 50-watt regular, 60-watt MOPA, and 100-watt MOPA. Are there plans to offer Nova with higher wattages? Not currently. So I know that several years ago, our home office ran some tests on a 150 watt and compared it to the 130. And there just wasn't enough added benefit to bring in another line and offer that to our customers. So maybe that changes in the future, but currently we don't have anything in the works to offer a higher powered CO2. I'm seeing a lot of questions about material guide. Is there a general recommendation of when to use a 50-watt fiber over a 20-watt? So they will do the same things. The main difference is a 50-watt will be able to get deeper, faster. So if you're just looking to do a surface engrave on, say, like a aluminum business card, like this, I don't think the 50-watt would be any faster than the 20-watt on that. But let's think about like a coin or a gun where you're looking to get depth into the material. The 50-watt will be able to do that roughly twice as fast as a 20-watt.
Yeah, between the power, doing coins with the higher wattage, any type of deep engraving, I always recommend going with the higher wattage. Will the 20-watt do it? Absolutely, all day long, but it may take 2 to 3 times as long just because of the wattage difference.
Right, and there's no downside to going up in wattage. So if you've got the money for it, I say just go for the higher power. You're not going to regret it. Okay. Is it possible to upgrade a Nova 24 to a 100 watt? I'm space constrained. Yes, it's possible. We won't sell it that way. So the Nova 24, let me screen share again.
That's going to be a heck of a tube extension out
Yeah,
the
that's
side.
where I was actually getting at. So this is a tube extension with a 60 watt with a 100 watt. I'm trying to see if I got a straightforward picture. I guess not. With a 100 watt, it was probably going to be sticking out way over here. So I'm sure you can, I'm going to say jerry rig because that's the only way I know how to say it. I'm sure you could jerry rig a 24 to have a 100 watt, but it's not going to be very functional. The 100 watt tube is very long, so it would make more sense to just go ahead and go with the Nova 35.
Yeah, the tube and the extension will probably be at least almost the full size of the 24. It's going to stick out the side quite a bit.
Yep. Will the Aurora 8 Pro 50 watt fiber be offered with Lightburn soon? I'm wanting the larger bed size. Okay, so the Pro models don't have a larger bed size than the basic models. They do come with a different lens, as Chris was mentioning, but the basic Aurora and the Pro Aurora are basically the exact same machines with different sources. So the working area or the max part size is roughly 10 inches by 14 inches, but depending on what lens you have on the machine will determine how large of a working area you'll have. So with the basic models, it comes with a f160 lens. Let me get this pulled up. It comes with an f160 lens, which gives you 4.3 by 4.3 for the working area. Here we go.
F160 lens?
Yeah, that's the f160. So 4.3 by 4.3 is what you get with that. And that gives you a max work height of 7.9 inches. Now you could upgrade to the f290 and get roughly 8 by 8 for the working area, but you have to remember that limits the height that you can work on, which is 1.2 inches. So the Pro model doesn't give you more working area. It's just it comes with a different lens, but you can get a different lens with the basic model to get the same working area.
And I see Steve asked a question. He's leaving soon, so yes, we do have Texas. Equipment Texas has a demo room. Land O'Lakes, you have my facility here that you can come see the machine, and we also have we can search for some of our other locations too to see if there's somebody near you that has a machine and is willing to show you as well.
Yep. And Mark has a question. I see you provide RDWorks for the Nova 51. Is that what you are recommending over Lightburn? So RDWorks comes built into the controller that comes on the machine, the Ruida controller. But we've been providing Lightburn with our Nova series machines for 3 years, so maybe even longer than that. So we give you Lightburn when you purchase a machine, and that is, in our opinion, far superior to RDWorks.
No question.
Is your fiber laser okay? When cutting several small letters and certain shapes, still can't get rid of a single vertical line down the side. Most pieces, even with various attempts of lead in, lead out. Another way to get rid of this, I would send support an email on that, and or join into the tech webinar. Chris, is the webinar tomorrow? Is it live tomorrow?
Yes, it is. Every 2 weeks, and tomorrow just happens to be the day.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, I would hop in on that tomorrow, Michelle, and then you can ask that question, but still submit a support ticket if you haven't already. Hello, do you know how I can attach a 1/4-inch acrylic address sign to the outside brick? Hidden standoffs or screws? Standoffs, most likely.
Yeah, or they do have hidden ones that can attach from the backside, so there's tons of different ways to do that. Amazon carries a lot of them, or JDS also.
Yep. Sean asked earlier how to calibrate the camera. So if you go to the knowledge base and type in Thunder cam.
Yep, and we have a simple, easy solution for calibrating that.
So there's simplified calibration, but this is how you install it. You just follow those steps there. Tells you what it comes with, how to go about installing it, and then calibration. I thought the calibration was within that article, but I guess it's here as well. And so you
The
just watch
simple,
that video.
yeah, you want the simplified one.
Okay. So just type in ThunderCam, and it's the simplified ThunderCam calibration article. All right. What else do we have? What is the most optimal way to lay out common lines? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Like within Lightburn, the most optimal way to lay out common lines. I mean, there's an array feature. I'm not sure if you're meaning within the software or not, but there's an array feature where you can pick how much spacing you have between each. Let me see if I can show you real quick.
Yeah, that's
Well,
going to be the quickest way to have common lines, and common lines in Lightburn, if they are overlapping lines, if that's something that you're discussing, you can actually have them removed. You would need a little bit more specifics on that.
I'll show you this real quick. So I just drew out that rectangle, highlight it, array feature, and I can do
You're
like,
not. I'm not seeing your screen.
should be able to see it now. Hopefully y'all can.
Yep, I see it.
So yeah, that's the best way to lay it all out. So it's all evenly spaced. You can control the spacing vertically and horizontally. You can control how many you're going across. But I hope that answers your question. All right. So
And Steve, if you're in Georgia, I'm a quick trip down to Land O'Lakes, Florida.
Give you a good excuse to go to the beach.
That's right.
How do you join the bi-weekly webinar? Well, knowledge base, webinar.
So unlike a lot of companies, we have over 400 documents and articles on our knowledge base, where you have access to from schematics to answers to just about every question. And if the question or if the answer is not there to a question, we will build an article that will help other people in the future.
How do I remove overlaying lines? There's a few different ways to do that. There's not one way to answer it.
Yeah, as long as the lines are identical, and I know Lightburn is working on this, where there's kind of a buffer zone, but optimization settings in Lightburn will remove overlapping lines.
So I will post this. If you click that link, that'll take you to the webinar page for the support webinar. Can I design with Corel Draw? Yes, you can design with Corel Draw, Adobe Illustrator, Silhouette, Inkscape, really anything that will export a file that Lightburn will accept. And I know specifically with Corel Draw, you can design within Corel, and then there's a macro that you can download for Corel. That the macro is a Lightburn macro, so you can design, hit the macro button, and then it automatically opens up the file within Lightburn. Any tips on engraving glass? I actually did glass engraving earlier today, and it came out probably the best that I've ever done it. I know Chris has some tips. Everybody's going to say something different. For me, I just ran it at a really, really low power. I ran it at like 500 millimeters a second and 10% power, something like that. The problem is you're still going to get these micro shatters, but that's the best way to me that I have found to eliminate that as much as possible, just to run it at a very low power. But Chris, I think.
Yeah, I have, from what I have found on the CO2 laser, I focus into the material, and I can actually, I know the broadcast is a little bit delayed, but let's see, does that show, is it showing up now?
Yeah.
So That glass is straight off of the machine. There was no cleaning. There's no micro fractures.
Can you move
I
it
can run.
closer?
Yeah. Yep. So I can run my finger across it. I don't feel it like you normally do. There is texture in there. It's like a honeycomb pattern within the S. So it's not actually a defect or a bad engraving. It's actually part of the graphic. I focus into, so closer. So our normal focus is about 5 millimeters from the surface to be a perfect small dot. I'm focusing about 2 millimeters from the surface, maybe even a little bit closer. And the way that beam interacts with the glass, it really frosts it nicely. But yeah, I even have a video on my YouTube channel that goes through a lot of the misconceptions and how to clean it off if you do get the micro fracturing. But yeah, glass is a pain. The UV is a great fix to that. But if you're using the CO2, I would experiment with different settings, run some patterns on some glass and find the best one. Glasses all act differently too, just because of the way that they're formed and blown and made.
And Chris, can you do me a favor?
Yeah,
Do you have like business cards in there that you can engrave on?
yeah, I do.
Could you go to the Aurora and you can do the UV or the fiber and just engrave something on there really quick, like Thunder Laser USA or something like that? I want to show people how quickly you can do that with the fiber.
Yeah, and actually, I have one of my jobs as my Swiss Army knife here is I do samples for people interested in our machines, and I'm actually running some QR codes on these pieces for somebody, and I can do that really quick. They're actually coming out really nice.
Cool.
So I'll move you over there if you want to address any more.
Yeah, so how often should the lens be replaced? Well, you can clean your lens and you should clean your lens once or twice a day, just depending on how often you're using it. Um, but I think a lens could last several years if you're cleaning it properly. Now, if you crack it, you need to replace it immediately. If it's got any sort of imperfection on it that won't come off with cleaning, then it's going to severely impact the quality that you get from cutting and engraving. Could you recommend a resource to learn more on Corel Draw other than searching for YouTube videos? Personally, I do not use Corel Draw, and I don't think Loco does either.
No, and I did. I originally started out with Corel, went to Adobe, and then finally went to Lightburn for everything. So if you don't know a graphic program, it is much better to learn the program that you're going to be spending most of your time in, which is Lightburn. You can create in Lightburn. You can do just about everything you need to do in there. So there's, if you're at that, that juncture where you're like, man, I really want to learn how to do graphic design and I want to get a laser, one program is all you need.
Yeah, and Richard, you asked, like you say you have a 35-100 and you've been struggling with engraving photos. Go to YouTube and type in House of Lasers. We're going to toot Chris's horn a little bit. Make him feel really good. So Chris has a ton of video. I mean, we're already seeing several, a ton of videos showing you how to engrave photos. Some of it is in the photo. It's actually a lot of it is in the photo itself. If the photo is poor quality, the machine is going to do exactly what you tell it, and it'll engrave the photo poor quality. But Chris shows you how to edit photos in here within Lightburn, and then he also shows you and talks about some techniques on actually doing the engraving side. But I use a 35-100 watt over here, and I engrave photos on like wood and acrylic and things like that. For wood, the settings that I've used, now this will be different, but I've used 300 millimeters a second, 11% power, using Jarvis with around like 350 dpi. But it's going to vary depending on the size of your photo, the quality of the wood, what type of wood, and that sort of thing. So that'll give you a starting point, 300, 11, and 350 DPI.
All right, so I have this QR code set up.
Let's see it.
All right, so To get it to be the most visible, I'm actually creating a white background in that box first. Can you see the box okay, Grant?
Yeah, it's kind of
The
small,
red.
but
Yeah. So I'm to get the QR code to be able to be read. This is a really small. This is the size of a quarter. I'm doing a really, really light engraving first, or just a surface annealing of white, and then going back and doing the QR code. And
okay.
that one is almost done.
So that took about 10 seconds. Cool.
Yep, 10 seconds, and I think I think I had adjusted my focus a little bit for something else I was about to work on. So we'll see what it looks like this time.
And you can do something like this within like 30 seconds. I know it's not super clear, but it's a photo of me. So yeah, this stuff is seconds to get it done on a fiber. Whereas something like that would take a couple of minutes on a CO2, a gantry CO2.
Yep, so perfect QR codes, and this is going to be used in manufacturing. So this isn't just, these machines are not just used for hobby creation and Etsy stores. We have full bore companies creating like insulation panels and parts and pieces that they're marking. So really cool industry. Always changing.
Trying to see if there's any more sales questions that pop up. Does Lightburn allow for export of files if we use other machines such as CNC? Yes, you can export the files, but to my understanding and my experience, it exports a Lightburn file.
Well, you're going to learn today too.
So you can export in like a different format?
Yes, because I run my CNC router and my CNC plasma cutter. I build all of my graphics in Lightburn, and you export as a DXF file or an SVG file. So either one of those, either one of those exports can be used in like Vectrix or other CNC plotting programs.
How do you do that?
Create your file, then you're going to go into the file menu in Lightburn and click export, and you can pick between one of the two.
Oh, I see. That's really easy. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So yeah, you can do a DXF and an SVG, just like Chris said.
I wasn't lying to you guys.
Well,
let's see. I've got a sheriff's logo here that I want to try to put on a business card for you.
Okay, where can we find Chris's YouTube videos? House of Lasers. So I put that answer a little bit down. House of Lasers is his YouTube channel. Okay, we got a business card. You said you're going to put a logo on it?
Yeah, I'm going to put my, I just did a job for the sheriff's logo the other day, and I have it already ready to go. Minus settings, I did it on something different. So just give me a second to set it up.
Okay, I'll have my garage. I'll have my garage. I think you meant I'll have my laser in my garage. Any concerns for summer or winter months? So the summer, just try to, this is what I tell people anytime I get a temperature question. Ideally, you would have the machine at around 60 to 90 degrees. That would be perfect. You can operate outside of that. So as long as you can keep it at 40 degrees or above, you should be just fine. Now, you could get a mini split. That's an option that I've seen a lot of people do. For the colder end, you can use antifreeze. We actually have an article on this. So what do I type in? Temp. Thunder laser cooling, temperature, and freeze mitigation. We got an article on it. I'll send it. I'm going to try to check into the chat and see if there's some questions in there that I'm not getting in the Q&A. What is the best way to determine what machine you should purchase to fit your needs? Sales call. Schedule a sales call. That is the best way to do it. So really, you can click and get a free quote and schedule a call here. I'll put that in the chat. Sales call. So schedule a call with us. We'll walk you through what machine will be best for you depending on like what you're using it for, how thick you want to cut, all of that. So just schedule a call with us and we'd be more than happy to help you. How long did that take, Chris?
30 seconds, but it did 2 passes, just a cleanup pass.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do another one, and I can just do one single pass.
Is that your scan offset card?
No, it does look like him, doesn't it? No, it's just a regular card. That's funny. 300.
On wood, is there any good way to keep the smoke from staining the wood? You can dial in your air just right. Also having your power at the correct power. There's no right or wrong way to engrave something. Like some people like a deep dark engrave, some people like a surface level engrave that's not as dark. But there is a fine point to where if you have your settings just right, you're not going to get very much smoke at all, at least not any buildup. But one thing that I do is I sand the wood if I'm wanting to get a very, very deep engrave and I'm using a lot of power and it's creating more smoke than normal. I'll just sand the wood afterwards. That was quick. Can we see what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's on gold, so it's a little difficult to see. So one thing that I will mention, like Grant said, when it comes to engraving, there is no right answer. And doing these test cards, can you see the test card on there yet?
Yeah.
Doing these test cards are probably the best way to figure out exactly where you want to be, because it's going to come down to how deep you want it to be engraved and how dark you want it to be engraved, with the question of how fast can I get the job done and achieve that. So you're looking at your speeds and your power, and you're correlating the two to find the answer that's right for you or for the specific job. And having these test cards, which are, you can do this right in Lightburn. You can build a test card. There's actually one on the knowledge base. I did a video just recently of how to do that, how to create one from scratch. And that's huge. I mean, there's no better way to tell what your setting should be than by looking at it directly.
Yep. Somebody is asking about new machines that are coming out. So we'll have more information on new machines either next month in July or first part of August. So we'll share some more information at that point. We're very, very excited, to say the least. All right. So I do see some questions coming in the chat section. If y'all have questions that you're wanting us to get answered, if you could just put that in the Q&A section, it's easier for me to filter through there. Is there an optimal way to line up the Rotoboss?
Yes. Yep, and I can show that. But what you're going to do is, one, obviously lower your bed down. Two, you're going to run the red dot across the clasp and then across the back side of the backstop. And you want to be right in the middle. So as long as that red dot runs across the clasp, the in between the wheels again, and then the backstop, it should be straight.
Gary, I don't think we have an article on smoke specifically, but to better answer your question from earlier, I would just run some tests with playing with your air. Lower your air on the dual stage air assist. Now you still need enough air coming out of the nozzle to keep positive pressure so that there's not any smoke or buildup on the lens. But normally what I do is I turn it all the way down, and then I slowly turn it up until I can feel positive pressure, and then I'll run my job. And that's for engraving.
Yeah, if you're getting a lot of smoke from cutting, then you're likely not focused correctly, and the beam is too large, or you're just not getting all the way through. The smoke should be pulled from underneath, not above. So you shouldn't really even see the smoke if you're cutting all the way through it.
Chris, can you speak to having a laser machine in hotter temps?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the only thing that you have to worry about are your chiller temps. And our chiller, since we have an active chiller that is constantly cooling, as opposed to a passive that is really just like a car radiator, having a metal building in Florida with a wall temperature of about 130 degrees, I've never overheated my machine, and I run them pretty good. So yeah, I mean, the active chiller kind of mitigates that. And as long as you're, not operating out in the sun, you should be all right. Like I said, I had an unclimate controlled shop for 6 years in Florida, with the only thing that cooled us down was a fan. And I've never had an alarm or anything with these machines.
Okay. Does the glass on the machine does the glass on the machine protect your eyes, or do you need eye protection? I've never once used eye protection. Do you want to speak to that, Chris?
Yeah. Kind of like looking at oncoming lights on a car or looking at the sun. You don't want to do it. Now, we all want to watch the machine run. The glass is there to protect you as well as the metal casing around it. By the time it bounces off of something, like if you're doing a metal tumbler, then I probably wouldn't be looking directly at it. You may feel a little bit of heat, but there's no major danger of looking at it. You're not going to get welder's eye unless you're looking directly at the beam. But because of the lens and it's focused at a certain particular point, it diffuses once it gets past that. And it's not harmful to, it is harmful to, what would you say, Grant? You don't want to put your hand underneath it. You don't want to look directly at it because of the bright light that it creates off of some of these things. Yep. But yes, our tempered glass is much better than a lot of the other companies out there that have acrylic, which is combustible. It'll catch on fire.
So Gary, yes, the air is controlled by the dual stage air assist with the 2 screws on the front left of your machine. The little black panel that's got 2 green little buttons that you can click. You can control how much air is coming out. So you bring the nozzle of the head closer to you. You can hit the test button and then twist. Thank you, Chris. Now in Lightburn, if you turn air off, it'll automatically go to low air. And if you turn air on, it'll automatically go to high air. Is it better to use an external air compressor or the one that Thunder Laser provides? Depends on what you're doing. I have a Nova 35 100 watt here, and I have only ever used the stock air compressor. I've cut 1/2 inch wood. I've cut 3/4 inch pine. I haven't had a real need. The times where I suggest getting an upgraded air compressor are for those people that are wanting to cut 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch very consistently. Like they're going to do that a lot. Now, you're not going to need that air compressor, but it helps. It definitely helps.
So real quick, to go back to the rotary, I make sure that my red dot is in the center of my back plate or going in between the wheels. And then I also make sure that it crosses in the middle of my clasp. And once I've done that, I know it's straight, I'm good to go. And then I align it and set my origin on my cup.
How much support is there for setting it up after you receive it? Let me screen share again. So in the knowledge base, let me go back to the main site. is our main site. You click on Knowledge Base. The first thing that you need to do, you could do this before you even buy a machine, but look at the cheat sheet. It's basically your getting started guide, and it'll walk you through everything you need. But there's tons of videos on setting the machine up, and I think there's actually a section in here. Setup of the machine, uncrating, explore the layout and components, setting it up. There's a video that walks you through setting it up. But to answer your question directly, yes, you get lifetime support when you purchase a Thunder Laser. So anytime you have a question or a problem, you can email support@thunderlaserusa.com, and we generally respond within 5 or 10 minutes. Also, after you do get the machine set up and you've run a few tests, you can schedule your free hour of training, and you can schedule that in the knowledge base as well. I'm going to have to hop off here in a second. So I'm going to try to grab any last minute questions. Is this webinar being recorded? Yes. And we will be sending the recording out. Do you use the honeycomb bed when cutting acrylics or the blades? What I do is I use the honeycomb bed and I elevate the acrylic from the bed with these magnets that have a point. So that's the route that I take.
And I usually use the honeycomb. I do a lot of acrylic engraving and cutting, and I really don't have an issue if you're overpowering your cuts. It will have backflash onto the backside of the acrylic and make little indentations or marks. So you just have to be careful that you're not overpowering your cuts, and you should have a really good thing. But yeah, lifting it off of the surface somehow is always a good idea.
Yeah, and on that with the backlash or the flashback, I'm only concerned about that on clear acrylic. On colored acrylics, it doesn't make much of a difference because most of the time when you're cutting a colored acrylic, it's going to be for a sign and nobody's ever going to see the back of it. So if that's the case, I think elevating it is just an extra step that's not really necessary. But if you're doing clear acrylic, you will most likely be able to see the flashback, or there's at least a chance for it. So that's when I elevate the material. Okay. So again, if you have a support question, please email our support guys, support@thunderlaserusa.com, and they will respond usually within 5 or 10 minutes. I see a lot of support questions in here. That's great. We want to help you guys, but send them over to our support techs, and then you can also join in on the webinar tomorrow. And I think I'm sorry if I missed any sales questions. I'm trying to go through here and pick them up as they come across. But wait, I think we might have just got one more. For cutting glitter acrylic, should we be masking with paper? A lot of acrylic comes with masking. So if you're cutting it, you could just leave it on. I don't see any downside to doing that. If you're engraving, from my experience, it can be kind of a hassle to clean out the masking that's left over.
Nobody likes weeding.
Sometimes
weeding is not fun.
Say you have a black sheet of acrylic and you're wanting to get some white lettering in it. So you would leave the masking on, the black acrylic, engrave over the masking, and then you can use acrylic paint or any sort of paint to paint into where you just engraved and then remove the masking. That's really the only time I would ever leave the masking on the front side. Otherwise, you don't really need it. The back is really the only area that I leave it on. I got disconnected, but why do you not recommend using the start button in Lightburn? Because if you use the start button in Lightburn, Chris probably has a more technical way to say this, but there can be a lapse in communication between your computer and the machine to where it could miss certain parts of your design. Whereas if you send the job to the machine and then start it from the machine, that avoids that from happening. You don't even have to do it that way. That's the way that I do it. You can also do Shift plus send, and it'll automatically, does it automatically start the job?
It will. It'll actually send the entire job first and then start the job. And so I guess the easiest way to explain it is starting will buffer the information. And sometimes, I don't know, whoever watched Willy Wonka, like Willy Wonka vision, where they're sending that kid through the air in particles, we're buffering that information over, and bits and pieces can be lost or even jumbled, depending on how it's received by the controller. You want to send the entire file over and then start it. This way, there's no confusion whatsoever with triggering the air assist, with completing your job correctly.
And I'm seeing more and more support questions in here. So not only can you email support, but this knowledge base that we've been using today, really anything you could think of is going to be answered in here. Like somebody mentioned calibrating your camera, that's in there. Using the start button in Lightburn, that's in there. You just have to figure out what exactly you need to type in, but lead in, lead out, usable special. So yeah.
And you know, if you send a support ticket in, we typically, one, will respond quickly. And two, we're responding with documentation that's already been written and discussed and tried and true, that will get you back up and running or get the answer to your question really, really fast.
Yep. But all right, everybody, I got to head out. I've got a 2 o'clock that's going to be waiting on me here in a second. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll do this once a month. Let me know if you liked this format instead of Chris and I having things lined up to do during this. If you liked it better to have a live Q&A and kind of demoing, just let me know. Yeah, thank you for joining again. Thank you, Chris, for hopping on here with me. And
Absolutely.
We'll see you all next month. Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.